Imagine if the only obstacle that stood between you and the life you've always dreamed of is 6 simple words. Jeff Rogers will show us how to break free from limiting beliefs, step into the habits of our future selves, and unlock a world of infinite possibilities. As an award-winning storyteller and creativity expert, Jeff has dedicated his career to helping people think bigger and act bolder. From the stages of the Second City Theater to the classrooms of Harvard, Stanford, and MIT to Fortune 500 boardrooms. Jeff has guided thousands to redefine what's possible in their lives and careers. He is a celebrated keynote speaker and brings over 3 decades of experience in engaging and inspiring audiences globally to our Golden Great Breakfast Club. Last year, I became an enormous fan when I watched his performance to find the best storyteller in the National Speakers Association, and Jeff proved he was a master storyteller and became the very first last story standing winner. It might interest you to know Jeff is the owner of the Players Workshop. This is the oldest improv company and where Jeff and SNL alumni Bill Murray were trained. Get ready to laugh, reflect, and unlock your very best self. To discuss 6 words to change your life, unlocking possibilities and achieving your full potential. Please welcome Jeff Rogers. Applause, applause, applause. Yay, thank you.
When was the last time that you took a leap of faith, either literally or figuratively? I actually have a picture of when I did that exact thing, both literally and figuratively. Yeah, that's me on the top of a 14,000-foot mountain, preparing to jump off of it to get to a 10,000-foot plateau. Literally a leap of faith. And along with me, strapped to my back, is Rick. Yeah, we're about to run off the edge of this mountain, me and Rick. Strapped to Rick's back is a paraglider. If you've ever seen a paraglider, it's this thin. That's about to support a lot of weight as we jump off a mountain. When I realized that we're doing this and we are literally about to jump off a mountain together, 2 fundamental facts become crystal clear to me at the exact same time. Number one, that I was about to jump off a mountain for a client. This was for a client video that we were shooting for a company that, well, no longer exists. Ironic. The second thing that became clear to me was, other than I'm willing to do anything for a client, I had never asked Rick what kind of day he was having. I didn't ask him, hey, Rick, how's your day going, buddy? And we were about to jump off a mountain together. When I did turn to him and say, hey, this is going to be something. How you doing? He said some fateful words to me that still haunt me to this day. Well, my divorce got finalized. What? What do you mean, buddy? Hey, should we put this off a day or two? No, we're good. We're good. Listen, this is how this is going to work. The way this works is that we start by walking together. Now we're strapped together. So literally, Rick is connected to me. And he says, we're going to walk together. We're going to start walking when I say walk. Then, when I say run, we're going to start running. Okay? And then when I say run as fast as you humanly can, I want you to move like the devil is chasing you. Now, we need to pick up this much momentum in order to fill the paraglider with air so that when we jump off the mountain, we won't just fall. And he said, when we get up there, when we get up in the air, that's when I'll share it with you. What do you mean, Rick? I'll share with you the secret of the sky. That's not exactly what you want to hear when you're about to jump off of a mountain with a guy. But having lived through it, spoiler, I realized that that's a lot of what you might be feeling right now. We're about to take a leap together. And yet, you really don't know me that well. But let me tell you this. Throughout the course of our conversation together, we're going to do three things. We're going to start walking, and I'll introduce a few ideas. And then we're going to start running. And then we're going to run as fast as we humanly can and jump. So if everybody's ready for that, then we can figure out and learn the 6 words to transform your life. Now, a lot of folks might have an idea of what that is and what those words are, and they do change from person to person. I will be honest. But the words that we're going to concentrate on are these. What if, as if then. Now, I know some of you out there might be thinking to yourself, wait a minute, he used if 3 times. Okay. Yeah. So really, I'm only getting 4 words. If you're one of those people, okay, get that looked into. All right. Maybe talk to somebody about that. You're really getting very specific about the needs. I tell you what, I'll give you a couple extra words as well, but that is so really specific. All right. So let's start talking about these words. We're going to start with passion. And in fact, during our previous discussion, when I heard people talking about innovation, I heard their passion. I heard about what drove them to be innovative. And there was a book out by a guy named Simon Sinek. And he talked about passion. And he said in his book, start with why. And that actually made me think, is that accurate? And that's why I came up with those 3 phrases, because when I thought about it, I never came up with the why. I always came up with the if. And the reason I did that is because when I think about life, it's full of ifs. And that's what actually makes us go. And so when I think about the different ideas that we're going to talk about, the idea of starting with why, the passion of it. If you can find your passion, you can figure out what you're supposed to do. So, well, when you think about it, buying a house is a big deal. That's one of the major commitments of your life. Talk about your why, talk about your passion. But I actually think that there's something else that drives us. Passion is our energy, but we have to figure out our what if. See, what if is our direction. What if gives us the location to actually point that energy. And so that became really important to me to figure out. What's the what if? What's your what if? What's your goal? What's your dream? So, what if really is about the possibility? If passion is our engine and our momentum and our energy, what if is the location we want to direct it? That's where we want our passion to get us, like buying a new home. So, if we want to get out of the space that we are trapped in, i.e., our comfort zone, and by the way, when I say comfort zone, I really mean zombie zone, because that's what we are in our comfort zones. When we can do something without really thinking about it, it's kind of like being a zombie. And that's not what we're made to be. There's an old saying that says ships are safe in the harbor, but that's not what ships are built for. Well, the same thing applies to us. We're comfortable in our zombie zone, but that's not how we grow. And if we want to change our life, if we want to transform who we are and how we approach this entire thing that we do, this life that we live, then we have to grow to be uncomfortable. We have to leap over that chasm from our comfort zone over the uncomfortable zone and into our growth, our transformation. But it's not easy to do. And I get that. And I want to prove that to everybody because I want to take everybody on a little trip, a little time traveling trip. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to travel into the future. And what I want you to do is I'm going to turn the knob 1 year into the future. So we are all back together. It's 1 year in the future. It's 2026. We're all back together again. And in fact, we're all wearing the same clothes. It's a little weird. Just go with it. And I'm going to give you 30 seconds. And I want you to think about what have you accomplished in that past year, right? Because now we're 1 year in the future. Think about what it is that you accomplished. Maybe it has to do with work. Maybe it has to do with life. Whatever it is, I want you to think about it. Try and come up with three, but come up with at least one. Come up with one. And I want you to type it into the chat, but don't press send yet. I want us all to do that at the same time. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds starting right now. Come up with one thing that you accomplished. You get there? All right. Go ahead and put it into the chat. Go ahead, press enter. Let's see this cascade of different things that were accomplished. Published a book, right? Visited Yosemite, tripled my business, wowed NSA at Thrive. These are fantastic. Better health, better speaker. I wrote a scene for Lord of the Rings in each episode there. Exercising, build muscles. These are fantastic. Progressed house move. That's great. Hopefully we had that showing. All right, these are all fantastic. Look at everything you did. I just have a quick question for you. Who won the lottery? No, nobody? Because I'm looking on the chat here real fast. I didn't see it. No, nobody won the lottery. That's all right. That's okay. Let me ask another question real quick. Who wrote the story of their life, had it made into a movie where they played themselves and won an Oscar for their performance? I'm going to quick scroll. Quick. I'm looking at the chat. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it in the chat. And why not? We could have done anything. We literally time traveled into the future. That was the only parameter I gave you. Our limiting beliefs cause us not to reach as far as we are capable and to dream a little bit smaller. And as we get older, those dreams become even smaller. What can I manage? What can I just get to? Instead, we need to leverage our true strength, which is our imagination, our creativity, our what if, and not in a negative way where it's oh, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if the car doesn't start? Well, what if we get caught in traffic? What if we can't find a parking space? What if? And we get used to using what if for all the negative things instead of using what if for the positive aspects of it and informing what's possible. And so I invite you to start utilizing what if in a way that will enrich your life, that will challenge you, that will force you out of the zombie zone into that uncomfortable zone. And I believe wholeheartedly that you can exist there and thrive there so that you move into that transformational zone just beyond that uncomfortable zone. So now we understand with a nice little walk through what if. as we walked through that forest. And I want to add one other thing to this. We talked about innovation a little bit earlier in this meeting. And there are two words that I think that everybody can use when thinking about innovation, and that's yes and. Now, my background is in improvisation. These are the fundamental tenets of improvisation. And very quickly, I will tell you they are applicable to virtually every scenario. Yes and is not about agreement and then throwing in an idea. Yes and is actually about yes, you are agreeing to the current state of reality, your current state and someone else's current state, which may not be the same as yours. In fact, nowadays, very often it's not. But by agreeing that they have the right to have that belief system, that reality that they're living in, it opens the door for and. And that's the magic part. That's the part that allows you to build a bridge to the future state, the transformed you, the agreement that you'll reach together, where it's not all their idea, it's not all your idea, but together you come up with an incredible idea. Imagine utilizing that in innovation, in a group setting when everyone's throwing ideas around. If everybody said yes, think of it like a garden. You don't just plant one seed, do you? So if you are, that's amazing. If you get a crop from one seed, well done. But most of us, not so much. Most of us plant many seeds and then we take the best ones. And when you can create that kind of scenario, that's when you get the very best produce, the very best outcomes. All right. So we've talked a little bit about what if, and now I want to start running. And on that mountain, it was very funny because when you have somebody strapped to your back, Rick's head was right here. So as we're kind of running along and I'm holding onto the straps, he goes, okay, now start running. Rick was 6'4". His legs were much longer than mine. And so he and I finding the syncopation to run together, it was as if that alone would have been worth the video that we were shooting, just us trying to, I'm running now, my leg is trying to, but we started figuring it out and we started being able to move together. We started moving as one. And so I think we're ready to start running as well. And so I want to introduce the next concept to you, which is as if. To act as if. And honestly, I think that this is a superpower. This is a superpower using our imagination and creativity that we do not tap into enough. Almost none of us tap into it enough. There's one person on this call who actually uses it every single day and has made a career out of it. And I'm extremely impressed with this person. And I'll get to you in just a second, Randall. We need to act as if the superhero we need to be in challenging situations. Do you know why they call January 10th quitting day? Because January 10th is when most people quit their resolutions. It's about 10 days. It takes about 10 days to get most people, 95% of the people, 97% of the people to quit their resolution that they were wholeheartedly making January 1st. Why is that? Because when we're moving from zombie zone to transformation, we take 3 steps from unbearable to uncomfortable to unstoppable. And it's during those 10 days of unbearable, that's when we need the help of a superhero. And let me just really quick get into the language of this. When we get into the etymology of the word hero, it doesn't actually mean someone with superpowers. Hero actually means the strength for 2. Not of 2, but for 2. And that's what we can be when we act as if. To get through that unbearable section, we can act as if we are the hero that we need. We can adapt the superpowers that we need in order to get through that unbearable part. That's what gives us the ability to achieve the things that we want to achieve. Now, there are a lot of examples of this. Sasha Fierce. Everybody knows Beyonce, but what you may not know is that she had incredible stage fright, could not walk out on stage. And so she created a character, Sasha Fierce, who was inimitable. She was absolutely unbreakable. When she got on stage, she owned stadiums. She acted as if she was Sasha Fierce, and eventually she became that powerful on stage, and she didn't have to adapt the character any longer. Marshawn Lynch, if you follow football at all, if you have ever heard of beast mode, this is where beast mode came from. This guy who was very, very shy adapted a character of beast mode. And when he would get onto the field, he would imagine himself as a tank and could not be stopped. Our imagination is limitless. It has the power to make us able to do things we didn't think we were able to do. And science confirms this. Here's the cool part about it. The studies that they've done on this, like the study at the University of Michigan, which had people take an eye exam, and then they had them put on the gear of a fighter pilot, and they put them in a mock airplane, and they put the same eye exam out on the wing, scored much higher when they were dressed and in the environment of a pilot, because their imagination thought, oh, pilots must have good eyes. And so they did a lot better. But it's not just that one. There's a ton of studies for this. There's a lot of studies, many studies that show just how powerful it is adapting a personality that fills the gaps that we feel we have in order to get through an unbearable situation. They did a study at the University of Minnesota with children, and they gave them an unfigure-outable puzzle that had keys and a ring of keys. And they said, the control group, they just said, try and figure it out, and they timed them. And then for another group, they gave them the option of putting on a Batman costume or a Wonder Woman costume and then doing it. And what they found was the group that put on the costume stayed working at the problem almost twice as long as the kids who originally worked on the problem. The reason for that is because Batman wouldn't give up. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about what superhero that you could adapt. What could you take on? What could you act as if in order to get you over the gaps, the challenges, the places where we tend to stop, turn around, and go back to our zombie zone? I want you to think about that and put it into the chat. Think of a superhero. Now, you don't have to keep this, but I want you to think about what traits would you inhabit if you had the opportunity to do so? Who would those superheroes be? Yeah, Wonder Woman's Lariat of Truth, sure. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, brilliant. Anyone that can fly. Sarah Blakely, absolutely. The Pitch Freak. Did the Pitch Freak just pick his own super? That's fantastic. I absolutely love that. By the way, I saw your presentation for the Golden Gate Breakfast Club, and it was fantastic. Holmes, Gordon Hill, that is after my own heart. I'm assuming that Sherlock Holmes, and you're not actually touring a home or setting up an opportunity to go see a home. Fripp has actually been Wonder Woman. You know what? I can absolutely, totally see that, costume or not. That is 100% her personality. Wisdom Man. These are fantastic. The thing is that we can do this whenever we want to. And in fact, I had the opportunity to live this out, which is what made me think of this entire idea and go looking for the studies that prove this to be true. It was the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday, the day of the big sales, and I needed a new coat. So I figured I would go to Macy's, but I would go in the afternoon and I would miss all the insanity, but still get a good deal on a coat. To which my wife said, bless your heart. So I'm at Macy's and I'm trying on coats when all of a sudden I hear, excuse me, excuse me. And I turn to see a 6'7", 350-pound giant coming right at me. I mean, this guy was the size of Shaquille O'Neal after having eaten Shaquille O'Neal. Now, I look over to the cashiers who are 6 customers deep, and when they see the giant, it's as if something breaks inside of them. They literally start to surrender physically, saying, I can't. Whatever, eat me, step on me, I give up. Well, I turn back towards the giant thinking, oh, this is going to be a show. And that's the moment that I realized that the giant wasn't headed towards the cashiers. No, no, the giant was headed directly to me. He must have thought I worked there. I mean, I was dressed like this. Fair. Excuse me. Excuse me. Can you help me find a coat? Well, what would you do? I mean, have you ever had a giant problem? Now, I could have froze like the cashiers. I could have tried to fight the giant, or I could have just run away. Instead, I chose to use my superpower, my response ability, my ability to respond. I chose empathy, and I chose to help the giant out. Yeah, I can help you. What kind of coat were you looking for? A puffy coat? Although with your frame, I wouldn't suggest it. How about a car coat? What's a car coat? It's a coat you wear in a car. Tell you what, let's try it on. And we did. We started trying on coats. Now, I've never worked in a clothing store before, but I've certainly worn clothes, so I started acting as if I worked there. Oh, yeah, I like it. Is it come in any other colors? Susan, not her real name. Susan, do we have this in any other colors? No, Steve, not my real name. All we have is out on the floor. Oh, yeah, it's all out on the floor because of the big sale and everything. I got to tell you, I really like it. It fits you well. I really like the leather piping. Never said the words leather piping before. Yeah, I like it too. You know what? I'll take it. And, thank you. I usually don't get service like this. And with that, he took his coat and he went off to buy it. I grabbed my coat, went up to the cashiers who now were done with the other customers and had huge grins on their faces. The one cashier asked me, "Do you have a Macy's card?" I was like, "No, actually, I don't." "That's all right. We're going to give you the Macy's card discount. In fact, we're going to give you the employee discount because for 5 minutes you worked here." That was amazing. And it was amazing. I mean, the giant, well, he got a little service maybe he's not used to getting. And the cashier's got a smile on what's got to be the hardest day of the year. And I got a great deal on a coat. But more importantly, I acted as if I worked there. And I was able to play the character of an employee. You see, when we play, we lower the stakes and we're able to try on other perspectives and other points of view. They say that when we stop playing, we get older. And I think that that's probably true. So the next time you have a giant problem, use your response ability and choose to play. And that's what acting as if is all about, is play. Playing. And we're all good at that. We all can do that. You know why I know that? Because we were all kids. We all have that ability. All right. So now it's time to get to the final two words, and those are if then. Now, this is where we start running. We're running as fast as we can. And when I was on the mountaintop, we're running as fast as we can towards the edge of the mountain. So there is nothing as focusing as running towards the edge of a cliff. Okay, you get very, very singular in vision. And the thing is, that's how we achieve our goals. That's how we transform, is by becoming singular of vision and utilizing if then, because if then is actually an equation. It's an algorithm. It's the ability to form habits that we don't really need to be thinking about. You see, if is the action, then is the outcome. How many things could you make into a habit that you don't have to think about any longer, that you don't have to make a decision about anymore? Aristotle said that we are what we consistently do. He's said to have said that. But if that's the case, and I think it is, then we are defined by our habits, what we do again and again. And so if we want to transform, then we need to make new habits and create the space and the focus that allows us to transform. So these terms are what if, as if then. And I know this is trite and that you see this all the time, but I'd like to end our conversation by talking about quantum field theory. And I know every speaker does this, and I get it. It's boring, but you know what? It's important. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. The thing is that basically, and by the way, if anyone starts talking about quantum mechanics and begins with the word basically, they have no idea what they're talking about. Basically, the idea behind quantum field theory is that there are strings that attach us all. There are connective tissues that connects to everything that exists in the universe. And that all of these strings, and you can look up string theory, and it's, they can vibrate a string on one side of the world and it vibrates, its mate vibrates on the other side of the world. And they started thinking there must be a tissue, a string, a fiber that connects all of these objects in the universe. And they came up with this idea of quantum field theory, that all of these fibers are interwoven and they touch and everything. And then they came up with this incredible name for it, which I absolutely love. The quantum blanket. Now, I don't know who's working in the quantum mechanics marketing department, but I absolutely love that term because it's warm, makes you feel warm, and it makes it feel like everybody is being cuddled by the blanket. But the reason I think that's important is because everything we want to achieve and everything that we're capable of achieving, we're already connected to. And we just need to apply ourselves in order to achieve that for ourselves and apply ourselves in the ways that allow us to cross the chasm of the uncomfortable zone. So it was at this point, after Rick had said, run as fast as you can, that we got to the very edge of the mountain. And he said, jump. So I jumped. And after running as hard as I could, running hard, and you can hear the pounding on the ground, and I'm running as hard as I can. And then all of a sudden, it was utter silence. And Rick and I were floating above the mountain, slowly circling. And just the wind kind of brushing past my ears, but I could hear what felt like for miles. And Rick kind of leaned over a little bit and said, pretty incredible, huh? I was like, yeah, this is amazing. He said, when I take people up here, I like to tell them the secret of the sky. Okay, this just got a little weird. I'm not going to kid you. Wasn't ready for that, for Rick to get philosophical. And Rick said, the secret of the sky are the 6 words that'll transform your life. Those words weren't what if, as if then. Those words are the tools you use to transform your life. He said, the secret of the sky is that the sky sees everything and sees what you're capable of. And the sky knows that you are worthy of your dreams. And when we think about that quantum blanket that connects us to what we want to achieve and the fact that we have the tools to do it, I invite you to jump. Thank you very much for having me here today at the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. This was absolutely a highlight for me, and I would love to answer any questions or talk about more about quantum mechanics.
Well, wonderful. And you'll be glad to know a lot of your pals, really famous people like Bill Stainton and Michelle Ray, are in here to see you. So that was spectacular. Wow. Well, as president, allow me to get the first question in. One, when you began your career in Second City, etc., did you envision what your career would be like now as a speaker and consultant to all the fancy people who invite you?
Uh, Absolutely not. Although I will say that absolutely laid the foundation for doing this, and by not just in a performative sense, although it absolutely trained me to be a performer, and it helped me become the performer I wanted to become. Uh, I grew up in a family of 11 kids, so talking to a group of people, being on a team, all of that I was born into. And the idea of improvisation is all about being creative and funneling that creativity. So when I got involved in that, I realized more than the performance side of it, I loved the creative side of it, the creativity. And that actually had applications across every vertical, every industry, every interaction. And so that's what I really became enamored of and passionate about was the utilization of creativity in every form. And that's what ended up driving me and really defining what I wanted to do. So as long as I can be creative and help other people be creative, which is a huge driver for me, then I'm having the time of my life.
Wonderful. First question then from our audience is from Janice Litvin, the past president of our local NSA NC chapter, who really, I mean, revived the great days of our NSA chapter. Janice?
Thank you so much, Patricia. So, Jeff, what I want to know is where's the video of the jump?
You know, that's so funny. I have been looking for that video. I know it exists. I have been searching for that. Half of my house is turned upside down, looking for that video. I will find it one day. I am positive of that, but it does exist. What's amazing about that video is that it shows us taking off and the videographer who was on the ground, we disappear into the sun. And it's absolutely an amazing little. I know. I wish I had it for everybody, but
I'll be
someday.
waiting with bated breath.
Well, had I known you were going to talk about Wonder Woman, I would have put me in a Wonder Woman costume in a slide to show you. I think I need to have it in case anyone else ever mentions it. Good. Gordon Hill and then Susan Rowan and then Janelle Barlow.
Thank you. Great program. How do you
Thank you.
unlock your potential? I'll refer to two NSA members Patricia knows well who influenced me. Bill Gove, who did a program called You Are Abundant. And in that program, he based it on, I think, a 17-word statement. You already have inside of you everything you need to live your life and celebrate your aliveness. Lou Heckler in a program talked about the wow factor, the wow factor being that quality each of us possess that no one else on the planet possesses. And we may be reluctant to actualize it, but do. I write in a journal every morning and I meditate at times through the day. What do you do to discover, as Sherlock Holmes would, the clues you need to actualize your potential?
I am a huge fan of Arthur Conan Doyle and Sherlock Holmes, and one of my very favorite quotes from any of the Holmes literature is the idea that when oh, and I'm not going to get it completely right in terms of the quote, but the basic idea is when everything else is impossible, then the impossible is what must be. And the idea is when you're, when he was looking for clues and it's a locked door mystery, no one could have gotten in. Well, then if the possible is not possible, then the impossible must have happened. Figure out what that is. I think that applies for everything. Anytime that you need any sort of creativity, the ability to think of something in a different way. We were talking about innovation earlier. I literally wrote a book on the combination of innovation and improvisation and combining those two things, lowering the stakes of innovation. We're all innovative. It's impossible for us not to be. The idea of lowering the stakes of that and creating the on-ramp for people to think innovatively, I think the idea of thinking of the impossible. And so some people might be intimidated by that. So come up with frameworks. What would Uber do in that situation? How could you come up with a solution that would utilize somebody else's equipment or car or their solution? How would you do that, right? So all of a sudden you've got a rubric to think through, a lens to look through that will give you a different take, a different perspective on something. And so that's what I use in order to really tap into that creativity and to leverage that, with my clients, with the folks that I speak to, and with my college age daughter.
Good. All right. So Susan, Janelle, and then the pitch freak.
Well, Jeff, I don't know if you looked in the chat, but I had the pleasure of seeing the musical If When with Idina Menzel,
Oh,
with one of my favorite songs. And I can't sing it, but it's What the F was so I love that song. But I have this vision of your friend strapped to your back. And that to me, and I have a question about that, but having
you have a question about that.
Yeah. It's such a metaphor because so many of us have things and people and the things they say and what we can't do and what we shouldn't do strapped to our backs, and they hold us back. So there's a metaphor. But could you please tell me, why was he strapped to your back?
Well, I think Jeff has frozen.
So in order to
Okay,
tandem.
good. Yeah.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So it was funny from my view, you all froze. So it wasn't my fault. It was all of you.
That was Idina's other play and movie.
By the way, that would be an absolutely great prank to play as a group of people on one person if everybody froze at the same time. Anyway, when you tandem paraglide, I had never done it before, ever in my life. And Rick was actually a professional mountain climber and paraglider. By the way, I came to find out later that he had a terrible accident he recovered from, but he had a terrible paragliding accident. And I was never so afraid for something that already happened in my life. So we had to be connected. And there's so much to that story in terms of there's plenty of folks that we have to be connected to. We have to be connected to our families, our work, now we can take ourselves out of those situations, but the reality is a lot of times we can't extricate ourselves. So how can we make that better? How can we work as a team? How can we run at the same time when his legs are much longer than mine and all of these other lessons? So yeah, it's a real story that honestly, every time I look at it, it gives me something new. And the idea of running towards a cliff and that leap of faith so I'm not kidding when I say the material for a parachute or a paraglider is there's nothing there. And we are putting hundreds of pounds of weight on this and believing that the air will catch it, that there is a hand that comes along and will fill our balloon, our glider enough to carry us if we have the faith. And that's one of my favorite sayings. Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And I think that's absolutely true. And that's certainly true in creative pursuits and innovative pursuits.
Okay, I understand. Now I understand the paragliding. I thought you were just jumping around. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. But also I put in the chat, if people want to understand how networks and string theory actually work in the concept of networking, the physicist Albert Barabasi wrote the book Linked. And that's what made my books different, is I had to read every sentence 3 times because I didn't understand what he was saying.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm
Okay,
betting he
Janelle
didn't.
Barlow, then the pitch freak.
Here's a good innovative question. How can you get Zoom to figure out when somebody's ready to speak and they're still on audio and it does it automatically? I think that would be a good innovative idea. So your discussion made me think about what's happening in the world right now about Ukraine. And I applied your 3 questions to that situation. So what if you're attacked by an evil giant to the east? I mean, a big evil giant. And your leader is a comedian, which is what Zelensky is.
Right.
And now you're being attacked by this big orange guy who says that you're terrible and responsible for this war that you didn't commit. So what if that's a big what if that's going on in the world right now. So then so let's see, what's next then? No, the next one is what? Act as if. Act
As if.
Okay, so act as if we are a proud nation, which the Ukrainians are. I've worked with them and I've been there, and they are an absolutely remarkable people. So they act as if they are who they are and that they're capable of fighting like hell and rebuilding. Apparently, they are in the process of rebuilding their nation while they're being bombed. They're going underground. So that's the as if. So then the question is, this is the tough one. If then what? If then they win, that's really going to change things. I don't know. Boy, somebody really needs to be talking about that. They get to rebuild, and Zelensky wins a peace prize, a Nobel Peace Prize. It really, for me, put this whole thing of what's going on in Europe and into position as to how can we get out of this. We've really got to look. The act as if is really important, and then we win. And are we?
Janelle, is there a question you want Jeff to answer?
Yeah. What do you think? Do you think your model applies to just about anything?
Well, so yes, I believe that. And I'll tell you a couple of ways I would adjust what you just said, which I think is really insightful. I would also use the what if in the context that you utilized it. It was the what if of the negatives, right? And these bad things happen. Of course they do. How can we use that what if? What if we can come to some level of détente with Russia? If I'm the Ukraine government, what if we can come with détente? What if we can reach peace? What would that look like? What if we can capture the Crimea? What if we can attack Moscow? Right? I mean, just in terms of logistical war, right? And the planning and the strategy of war itself. What if we can make strikes that strengthen our position at the bargaining table, which is always a position that warring factions want to take, right? Because eventually, without complete and utter destruction, there has to be some level of an idea of what they want at the end of the aggression, right? The act as if, I think, is already happening. You brought up Zelensky, and as a literal political, I cut my teeth on political comedy at Second City. That we do that every single night. He adapted the persona, I mean, really, of a Winston Churchill, of a wartime leader. You do not hear him making jokes. He does not do comedy now. He doesn't even use irony. He is 100% acting as if he is the leader of a war-torn nation that is that is trying to fend off an aggressor. He is doing as if, and he is doing it incredibly well. To go from where he was to what he's doing right now, that transition has been a case study in as if. By the way, I didn't mention this. Randall Reeder is the poster child of as if and living Will Rogers, who's a personal hero, was when I was a kid, and obviously same name. But that's somebody who encompasses, somebody acts as if they are Will Rogers, and the best things about that person, the superpowers of that person. Also, Randall won a huge award this year as well, or last year, Legend of Professional Speaking or Speaking Profession award. So I don't know if he got the flowers for that. So I'm throwing them out there. The if then portion of it, I think that's what they're trying to figure out right now. If we can do this, then how can we get, if we can get them to the table for talks, then how can we get what we need to get? How much will we have to give up? So, I mean, that equation absolutely still works in terms of that, in terms of thinking of what that future vision of the Ukraine is going to look like. I by no means think that it is a cure-all for everything, but I do think that it helps us to consider different ways of looking at the situations we find ourselves. And that's what leads to innovation. Again, you're going to plant a bunch of seeds. There are a bunch of ideas. You don't take all of them. You use the one you think is the strongest or the best for this situation. And you know, in a gentle way, that's what I would offer up with this. Not that it's a cure-all for everything, but it's a way of thinking a little bit differently about the situations we find ourselves and getting over that gap, that uncomfortable zone, from unbearable to uncomfortable to unstoppable. And that, if we can do that, then we've done pretty good, I think.
Perfect. Okay, your question, Mr. Pitch Freak. Antonio White, who is one of our past presidents and really a very hardworking board member, and then Mark Hauser. So
thank you,
over
Madam
to you,
President.
Pitch Freak.
Another amazing event. And Jeff, what an incredible presentation today. Thank you so very much for all of your effort and just the show-stopping performance. I'm so grateful for that. I particularly love your last statement here, your quote, "Be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid." So powerful. And what I wanted to ask or share with you is that this weekend, after 30 years in the technology space, I actually entered a hackathon. And 600 people were in San Francisco, and they assemble as teams ad hoc, and then they come up with an idea to build a product within 24 hours and then deliver it and launch it. And I was on two teams, both because I thought I would just hop around and help people with their pitches. And then on one side, I use a product developer hat, and the other side, I use a pitch. The short version of this story is that the what if was, what if an old guy joined a hackathon with all these young kids, right? And what if this old guy you didn't try to be the leader of the team, just become a member of the team. Normally I'm in charge of the team, and now I became just a supporter of the team. Such a huge insight and such a valuable experience as well. And the fact that we won the top prize from the sponsor was pretty nice. And then the other team that I advised, who came and got some help for me, they won the 5th prize overall in the program. That was just an incredible approach. It's just rethinking and recalibrating and being a different way. And then the pitch freak, why I put the pitch freak is because the pitch freak is my persona that I use, because horribly shy, difficult challenges here with introversion and so on. The pitch freak allow me to kind of pop out and be more powerful. And then lastly, for creativity, a client of mine that I work with and completely turned around their business, over $1 million in sales in less than a year. The words that I used to compel them to think about this was, "Hey, I've got a crazy idea." Right? And every time I had a crazy idea, I had a plan behind that crazy idea, to the point where they want to know, "Hey, any more crazy ideas?" So I can't agree with you more. So brilliantly produced and presented, and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. So Antonio is proving everything you teach, he does. And just so you know, for most of the Breakfast Club, we consider Antonio one of our younger members. Yeah, okay, good. All right, your question, Mark Hauser.
Thank you, Patricia. And Jeff, thank you. That was a marvelous presentation. I work at, or I'm the person organizing the Last Story Standing contest in Pittsburgh's NSA chapter this year. So we showed your talk at our last meeting, and it's a masterful display. I was happy to hear it again in your remarks. I wanted to ask, so your background was in improv, and I just received an email from the famous and wonderful and brilliant Patricia Fripp explaining the importance of rehearsal. And so I'm wondering for you, how you've found the balance between the energy that you get from improv in your professional speaking career with the necessity of rehearsal, and what advice perhaps you give to other people who are speaking on stage with the where the balance can be between diligently rehearsed remarks and remarks where you are kind of using that improv background that you've mastered.
Mark, everybody's going to think this is a setup question. So,
It's not.
So I want to take one quick step back, and I'll get to this because this is so everything I'm about. I want to jump back to Tony for just 1 second. Tony, I watched your presentation, which was also brilliant, and I literally started my presentation today with a question because of your lesson with that, which I think is brilliant. I work with incubators and accelerators on their pitches, and I got so much out of your presentation. So, Mark, here's the thing with improvisation. Improvisation is the ability to take your knowledge and experience and combine them in the moment. So you're not coming up with something brand new. You're combining the things that you already have and know in a new way. And that's every idea that we have. It's looking at things a little bit differently. But we have access to it in improv because we do two things. We say yes and. Every time we go out on stage, backstage, what nobody sees is that every improviser will go up to everyone else in the cast and they'll touch them on the back. And I saw Melissa Dimwittle here, and she can attest to this. You just tap them on the back and go, I got your back. And what that means is I am there to support you out on stage. When we go into the unknown, you can count on me 100% to have your back, and they will have mine. So that level of psychological safety walking out on stage together when we don't have a script or props or anything else empowers us to try the unknown, to do things we've never done before, to depend on our experience and our knowledge. In terms of how that comes to play in performance, I absolutely agree with Patricia about rehearsing. Do it 100 times. Do it 100 more if you can. Because on the other side of that is where true improvisation, magical improvisation takes place. When you have it in your muscles, when you have it in your being, you no longer have to think about it. It's going to flow out of you. And that's when somebody hops on and they're showing a house, you can relate to that and not be thrown off by it. Right? Because as we heard, there's other stuff going on. Real quickly, when I was training someone to give a presentation for their new medical device, which would tell people, it was kind of a wearable health device. As he was pitching to this group of 100 investors, an ambulance went by and he had to stop the presentation. And then after it was done, he continued the presentation. And I thought, oh, what a missed opportunity to say, now, if that person had had our device, that ambulance wouldn't have been needed, right? The world keeps giving you gifts. How you use them and how you recognize them is the difference between rehearsal and having it in your bones and then playing with it. I say this all the time. Even Major League Baseball players have batting practice every day. You always take your swings. You always rehearse. Broadway actors don't go out there and see what they can do with this Romeo and Juliet, or, they rehearse it to within an inch of its life. And then they get to this space where it can flow through them and they can be in flow with it. So, and I highly, for everybody, I highly recommend taking an improv class. It is, I think, one of the best tools in the world, not just for comedy, but for listening, for communicating, for interacting, for really being present with people. If you look at what they were coming out with from Davos, the World Economic Forum, leaders nowadays, they have to show a sense of humor. They have to be a coach. They have to be empathetic. That's what the new leadership formula is going to include, and improv has all of that. And so I offer that as a shortcut, as a literal way to learn it on the fly and be able to leverage it.
All right, wonderful. Jerry Lewis, who many of you are old enough to remember, said, "My best ad libs take 8 hours to write." Now, what I teach my clients is you have back pocket phrases. So if your boss says, "Oh, Janelle, I didn't know you were going to be here. We're 10 minutes ahead of schedule. Give me an update on your project." You have something to say while you're thinking about what you're going to say, which is, "Thank you for the opportunity to update you on our latest project." You have something to say and a formula structure in the background that you can slot in what you're saying while you are in the moment. So we all, as speakers, as sales professionals, as innovators, have to be perpetually prepared. Now, with that, now it is 8:58, and I am going to ask Jeff for his concluding comments. Then Tony will turn off the recording. I have to run away because I have a 9 o'clock prospect call. However, Tony will be in charge if you want to keep asking Jeff questions, if you have time, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm happy to stick around. Absolutely.
Okay, good. So Jeff, that was absolutely incredible. What are your concluding remarks for the recording?
Thank you so much for having me as a part of the Golden Gate Breakfast Club. This was such a fun experience, and so many interesting stories were told before we even started that I want to hear more from everybody. So thank you for including me in this. And I would just offer to remind everybody that we have this incredible gift of imagination and play. And when we allow it to take the lead, to drive the bus, it brings us to places that we never would have expected. And that is a magical experience. That's the magic that we have within us and the magic that we can experience on a regular basis. The last thing, real quickly, when Rick said, "You are worthy of your dreams," and that was the secret of the sky, I've carried that with me my entire life. There is nothing that will get you through imposter syndrome or any other doubts you have about yourself than knowing that the sky has been looking out for you this entire time and knows a truth about you that you forgot for a little while. So remember that you are worthy of your dreams.
Thank you, Jeff. Over to you, Tony Woodall, to